All right, today I've got Chris Miles with me, the man behind Money Ripples, who helps investors build cash flow that actually lasts. He's not here to sugarcoat anything with everything going on, tariffs and interest rates going up and down, and who knows what the Fed's going to do, recession fears. Chris is going to lay out the top 3 things that every investor needs to be doing right now. Get lean, get liquid, get out. 3 simple but powerful rules that you need to be implementing in your business. Let's break it down. Welcome to the Closers Club, Chris.
Hey, it's such a pleasure to be here, man.
All right, Chris. So you talk about get lean. When you say that, what exactly are we cutting? Are you talking like expenses, dead weight deals, like something deeper? Like tell us what you're talking about there.
Yeah, definitely not the whole Dave Ramsey, like I'm going to live cheap and off rice and beans type of crap, or
Yeah.
David Box, latte factory. I cut out that latte. That's not
Yeah,
what I'm
that's
talking
gonna
about
make
at
a
all.
difference.
Yeah, big difference, right? And trust me, I get it. I used to be a financial advisor 20 years ago, and I was AKA salesman in a suit, and I used to teach
Mhm.
that. But I learned a better way, especially when I got into real estate investing. I realized that there's a more abundant mentality when it comes around money, even when it comes to getting lean, right? So getting lean is about being a wise steward of your money, right? Like
Mm,
it's not just about being cheap, it's about prioritizing where you spend your money to the most productive places possible. This is true in
gotcha.
business, this is true also in life. Is
Mhm,
how can I be the wisest steward of my money? What's the highest and best use of the cash that I have in order to create better increase, be able to create greater stewardship of my money? And
mhm.
so, even as a real estate investor, right? Like this is not always just chasing after the highest ROI, although that's not bad either.
Yeah,
But definitely, we want to make sure that we also keep what we make, right? We also be able to manage that, not just take unnecessary risk, gambling and doing stuff. That's why I'm not a big fan of just going chasing after crypto and things of that nature.
right.
Not saying it's not a good or bad thing. I'm just saying like you want to stay with what works. And so the first thing you can
Yeah,
do
I
is
agree.
one is track your money, right? So both
Mhm,
in business and in personal life too. Many people do a good job in business. They might track their P&Ls, the profit and loss statements or whatnot,
mhm.
and that's good. But also at home, are you tracking your money there too? Do you
Yeah.
know how much is coming in, how much is going out? Remember this: in scarcity, spenders, right? They always look at how much money is coming in, but they ignore what they're spending, right?
Mhm.
Because they
Yeah.
want to not look at that. But savers
Oh.
are also in scarcity and do the opposite. Savers will
Mhm,
say, hey, I'm going to look at what I'm spending, and they'll hyper focus on being cheap, right? But unfortunately, they also don't look at the income side of the equation either. A steward looks at both sides of the equation. They say, hey, I want to see how much money I can bring in. How can I increase my income by creating more value for people? But also on the other side, if I'm spending my money, how do I do it wisely in a way that the money comes back to me? And
yeah.
that's the key difference between spenders, savers, and stewards. Spenders and savers will always be broke because spenders will always spend it all. It's easy come, easy go. But savers can never save enough. They can never pay off their debt fast enough. They're
Yeah,
always, it's just never enough. So you got
yeah,
to be a wise steward of your money. That's what it means to get lean.
yeah. Yeah, you definitely cannot save your way to wealth. I don't care what Dave Ramsey
Right.
says. That's not in today's day and age. I don't know really how that's possible. But, for people who aren't investors, it's a sound strategy, right? Don't overspend. But
Mhm.
for investors, obviously we operate a little bit differently. But I do think that's important. The get lean is, don't be spending money on dumb stuff that you don't need to be spending right now because there's just a lot of uncertainty out there,
Yeah.
you
And
know.
usually the
And
biggest
then
mistake I see is people just aren't tracking their money, right? I mean,
yeah.
it's kind of like this is what happened to me. Like, see, I quit being a financial advisor, went into real estate, was able to retire when I was
Mhm.
28 years old, right? So I thought
Wow.
I was the best thing ever. Of course, this is 2006. So
Yeah.
real estate was kind of like 2021 real estate, for
Yes,
you guys that
I was
remember that.
around. Uh,
Um, yeah, I mean, it was easy. You could have to have a heartbeat and make money in
mhm.
real estate. Well, then 2007, 2008 rolls around. I'm finding myself in the hole each month, right? Because
Yeah.
when money was so abundant, I've never bothered tracking it. It's like air. We never count the number of breaths we take, well, until I mention it. But you never really count the number of breaths you take unless the air is taken away. Same thing is true
Yeah.
with money. When I went to the place where I was like millionaire to upside down millionaire, where I was over $1 million in debt and 16,000 in the
Mhm.
hole each month between my business and my personal life, that was
Yeah.
rough. Then I started counting every dollar. So don't wait to get in that place. Start doing it right now. I recommend tracking it weekly, both in business and in your personal home expenses and
Yeah.
income and everything else that's coming in. So you can be very proactive and adjust on the fly. I wish more real estate investors would have done this in like 2022, 2023,
Yeah.
when we saw a lot of our friends go broke or even bankrupt because they just
So funny.
responded and pivoted too slowly, right?
Yeah. Um, I 100% agree with you. So we've talked about getting lean. So once you've trimmed the fat, the next is get liquid, right? So most investors hear
Yeah.
that and they think cash in the bank. What do you mean by, at least from your perspective, getting liquid? And like, how should the people listening, the real estate people, how do they actually do that?
Yeah. I mean, cash in the bank is a good start, right? But definitely have money available. This is the unfortunate thing. If you listen to all the financial advice out there today, they're telling you
Hmm.
to not be liquid. For example, they're always trying to convince you that you should be shoving money into IRAs, 401ks, Roth IRAs,
Hmm.
self-directed
Yeah.
IRAs, whatever it might be, right? And even self-directed, yeah, you can do stuff with it, but it's still locked in prison based on what the government rules are at that moment. So if the government changes their minds on those
Mhm.
rules, you have to follow with it. You do
Yeah.
have no say or vote in the matter. And so you have no control of your money, right?
Hmm.
Same thing with paying off your house. I know we had a mutual friend that posted recently. He's like, you know what? I just realized I should pay off my house quickly. It's like that
Mm.
should be the goal. Like get debt free. Dave Ramsey had some things right. I don't agree with everything, but that part was right.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, he's saying that from a wealthy perspective, but that's
Right.
not true when you're building your wealth, because
Hmm.
I made the mistake in the last recession. Now, see, I mentioned like I went in the hole each month, but I would have
Yeah.
been better off had I not put all this extra money. I dumped extra cash and equity in my house because I was also a mortgage broker at the time. So I figured,
Right.
worst case scenario, anybody with a heartbeat can get a mortgage. I can just do cash out refi and I'll get it whenever I
Sure.
need it. Or, hey, use that credit card line whenever I need it, right?
Mhm.
People think, oh, I've
Yeah.
got credit card lines, I'm good. Not realizing that when things get rough, when there's recessions and things like that, banks will cut
Yeah.
those things back. They'll make sure you
Oh,
can
I
get to
had
it. In
American
my
Express
case,
chopped back my cards like crazy. And I pay every
oh,
month.
yeah,
I
and
have
they
an
won't
excellent
warn
payment
you.
history. No, I lost
Oh,
like
yeah, yeah, you have perfect
50% of
credit.
my available balances got chopped.
Yeah. That happened to so many people, and myself
Mhm.
included too. I mean, it didn't matter if you had perfect credit history or not,
Yeah.
they would just slice them and they'd give you no warning. They just do it. And then they send you a letter after the fact, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And then in my case, now
And even with my
your credit utilization goes sky high because all of a sudden, they've chopped all those limits down.
Yeah, I actually watched, one of my clients did that where she had actually had a home equity line of credit with 84,000 in it, and, she'd
Mhm.
only done a balance of about 41,000,
Yeah.
but without warning her, they cut it back in half to
Mhm.
42,000. So not
Yeah.
only did she no longer have access to that equity, but then her credit score dropped because her
Right.
utilization rate went up, right? So it
Exactly.
was like
Oh,
a
I know.
double whammy.
Yeah.
In my
So
case,
where
it was a little bit
Go ahead.
harder because I had a house where the equity was in there. And when I went
Mhm.
to get it out, the bank said no. Then I tried to sell my house. But in
Yeah.
the meantime, of course, the credit markets were getting tighter. People couldn't afford to
Yeah.
buy my house. And
Mhm.
eventually, I tried to short sell the house because pretty soon I watched the equity drop and drop until all of it disappeared. Now I was trying
Yeah.
to short sell the house, but the bank still refused. They
Really?
refused the offers that we had because they were a little company called Lehman Brothers. Remember those
Ah,
guys?
I do. I remember.
So, eventually I had to foreclose on that house, after being in it for 3 years, had to foreclose on that house. It sold for about 200,000 less than the offers we had on it.
Mhm.
I did eventually get a $300 settlement check from
Oh,
Lehman
wow.
Brothers, from a class action lawsuit, but
Right.
that was not nearly enough to make up for the hundreds of thousands I lost.
Wow.
So that's what I mean, get liquid. And so bank savings is good.
Mhm.
I use actually infinite banking, like I use because I can get paid 6%
Mhm.
tax free. That money's protected
Right.
from lawsuits and creditors, so no one can touch that money. Where in the bank savings account, if someone sues me and wins, they can pull that money right out of my savings account. But with my life
Really?
insurance, they can't touch it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I actually keep most of my lion's share of my cash there. I have another friend, he's a real estate investor as well that we also both know, and he's got like $4 million just sitting there. Like
Really?
he wouldn't even use it. Like he doesn't even use it to buy cars and all the stuff that people will talk about, which I think is kind of bogus anyways.
Mhm.
But he just literally keeps it in cash to protect his family and or his business too, in case
Mhm.
things get tight. He can't get access to cash. He knows he can go there. And of course, if it's paying you 6% a year tax free, that's way better than point nothing percent taxable at the bank.
Right. I agree. So you talk about like the getting lean and getting liquid. I do think that's
Mhm.
important to, for whatever is going to happen in the economy in the future. Like
Yeah.
we want to have that dry powder to go out and take advantage of it. What do you see, from your perspective and having that background in, financial services and being an investor for so long? Like what's the lay of the land out there for investors with the tariffs and now apparently maybe we're at war, we're not really sure, but, like, with all that stuff that's going on, like, what should investors be doing right this minute?
Well, I definitely think the liquidity is a big
Mhm.
deal. I would get even more liquid, even if you think you are liquid. And the
Yeah.
reason I say that is this: is that we talk about Warren Buffett being one of the greatest investors of our generation, right?
Mhm.
I mean, over the last now year and a half, he's been liquidating like crazy. He's
Yes,
now
he
got
has.
347 billion
Phew.
sitting in cash, doing nothing with it, not investing it, just letting it sit in cash. Now, granted, he also tries to look for good deals, good value deals,
Mhm.
but he's seeing everything just be in a bubble right now, right? And I'm not saying all of real estate's in a bubble. There's always opportunities in real estate and different geographic markets and things like that.
Yeah.
But I definitely would say that whether Trump's got tariff situation or not, whether we've got Iran, of course, that's the most recent news. It's like, are we going to create a nuclear war because we made a mistake? All these kind of things, right? Like there's all kinds of stuff that are going out there. The best thing you could do is try to safeguard your cash. And again,
Mhm.
that's why I do keep some in the bank, but I'm not even
Yeah.
trusting banks fully either, which is why I'm keeping more in my life insurance instead, just trying to keep some money
Mhm.
liquid and set aside where I know it'll be safer in case of that stuff. But I
Yeah.
say, even if most people say 6 to 12 months reserves, I would say 12 to 24 months.
Really.
And that's personal. Business, business depends. I know I was talking to a friend of ours, Steve Trang, we're talking
Yeah.
about this. And, if you're doing things like wholesaling, for example, and it might take 9 months for that marketing strategy to start producing returns, you're going to need more than 9 months of reserve
Right.
right? Just to make sure you weather and can make it through that. Again, that's the number one reason why business owners fail is because they're just not liquid, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you might
100%.
think, oh, I gotta have offense, right? I gotta make money with this money.
Mhm.
I can't just let it sit on it.
Yeah.
And that's why again I go for higher yielding accounts, even high yield savings account, just like my high yield
Sure.
life insurance. I use those things to kind of help me put me at ease a little
Mhm.
bit if I'm gonna let my cash sit around.
Yeah. Trying to, project out and you give people a little sense of where we're at. I mean, we all understand there are market cycles, right? It's typically 5 to 7 years
Mhm.
from one side to the other. Where do you think that we're at? Do you think we're at the top, at the bottom, the middle, going up, coming down? Where do you see us?
I think we're at you ever been on a roller coaster, where
Oh,
you're
I
going up, up,
don't
up, it's
like
like
them at
click, click,
all,
click,
but
click,
I've
click,
been
click,
on
click, click,
them.
click.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then you get to the crest, and then you're just about to see what's happening, but you not quite
Mhm.
sure what's at the bottom. I feel like that's what we're at right
Yeah.
now. I feel like we're coming out of a pretty
Really?
big high, and I think and
Okay.
I guess it varies, but I think it's not over. I think I know that like in multifamily, we got our teeth kicked in pretty badly in the last 3 years. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't think
Yeah.
that's gonna be as bad. So anything that's already been hurt, I don't think will be hurt as badly as what you'll see in like
Mhm.
other places where we've already
Yeah.
seen a lot of good stuff. Like for example, I think single family homes, people banking on appreciation is a gamble. Do not bank on
Yeah.
appreciation right now. Maybe you can do some value add stuff if you're a flipper or something like that, but
Mhm.
be very, very careful and cautious because I
Yeah.
don't feel like there's a whole lot of room. And right now we are seeing credit card balances starting to go up. Like even
Right.
not just credit card balances, but even delinquencies have started to skyrocket the last several
Mhm.
months. So we're starting to see a lot of stress that all it takes is it's just like at that tipping point, right? It just takes one little thing to like
Yeah.
just break it, that little extra weight, and that's why when you have things they call it like a black swan event, right? Where,
Yeah.
like people would talk about 9/11, as being a
Mhm.
black swan event, even though that didn't really cause it. But it was one that, in fact, the market went up after 9/11,
Right.
but
COVID,
because
same
of what
thing.
was happening, because of what was the uncertainty, and also we also had all the mortgage the not mortgage, like company frauds that were out
Yeah.
there, like Enron, WorldCom, those kind of companies.
Mhm.
Then everything was just came to a screeching halt because everybody realized, wait, we can't trust anyone. And so just be aware of that. And I
Yeah.
do believe like I don't think it's like we can't make money. I think there'll be plenty of opportunities, which is another reason why I mentioned getting liquid. So then when the timing is right, not just now, what I think timing is always right to some level, but I think being more liquid, having more of that dry powder might get us
Mhm.
some really good deals when
Yeah.
people don't have cash. I think that's the biggest thing is people won't have cash available, and the
Yeah.
person with the cash will have the golden rule, right? The person with the gold makes the rules. Person with the
Sure.
cash will make the rules. We'll be able
Mhm.
to make good money in the coming months here.
Yeah, I definitely think there's going to be a lot of opportunity. So, so to kind of keep going on that, where you talk about, get lean, get liquid, and then get out. Explain that to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, so get out is like get that money out working for you now, right? How does that create returns
Got it.
right now?
Got it.
This does not mean lock it
Mhm.
away. Again, going away from the traditional crap of lock it away for decades and then hopefully it'll be there when you get around to it,
Yeah.
alive to enjoy it in the first. This is like, what do we do right now? I will say this:
Yep.
if you're an active real estate investor, yes, we want to get money out to create wealth now and create income right now. However, I would
Mhm.
also reserve some
Yeah.
of that cash to create multiple streams of passive income outside of your transactions, right? Because the one thing that I warned so many friends I had, like in a group called Collective Genius, I remember I did a presentation for them back in 2019,
Mhm.
2018. I said, like, guys, you got to make sure like you're creating multiple streams of passive income. Don't just rely on flipping or wholesaling everything else because at any moment it can change. And I remember one of
Mhm.
my friends from Pennsylvania, he did a lot of volume and he's like, you know what? I think I'm going to start cherry picking some of my deals. He's like, I'm going to start
Yes.
holding on to some of these deals and keeping them as rentals. He did. And even though we had a lot of friends in that group go out of business or completely bankrupt, the only thing that got him through, the only thing from what he told me, he's like, yeah, he's like, all my deals, like my whole company came to a halt. I laid off 75% of my workforce. He's like, the only thing that kept us going was the fact I had my other rentals coming in to pay streams of income.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying you have to do rentals per se, because that's not always the most sexy or fun thing to do. And that could be a lot of hassle. But I mean,
It
I
is.
lend my money to other real estate investors, just like you guys, right? I'm
Yeah.
lending my money and doing hard money loans and things like that to get paid on those deals and start generating streams of income from that. I even have like oil and gas investments. I've got a raw land partnership where I let them do all the raw land stuff. And
Mm.
I'm a 70% partner because I finance it, and
Yeah. Well, that
so
was
I've got
my
like
that
my
was my
money in so
question.
many
What
different
are
places.
what are some of those other
Mhm.
streams of incomes that you're finding the most profitable right now, places for people to be putting their money?
Right now, lending, whether it's a
Yeah.
lending individual on notes or it's lending
Mhm.
funds. I know there's some good, debt type funds that are out there that do that kind of lending, but then you can diversify among more deals than just one single deal. That right
Yeah.
now has been the best. I've also seen industrial. Industrial's done really well, like your Amazon warehouses or you're just plain old ugly industrial type stuff where they might have warehouses and things like that.
Mhm.
That's done pretty well. And then oil and gas, even though the oil prices have been lower up until recently, because we had the spike in oil prices with Iran and everything. I mean,
Yeah.
even with that, it's been okay. It hasn't been great, but it's still been paying consistently, even if
Mhm.
it's been at a very low price lately. And I do expect those oil prices to increase, which means that my cash flow will increase with it.
Yeah, they're saying that there could be a spike in oil here rather quickly.
Yeah, and I believe it. And
Yeah.
same thing. I think raw land, like that partnership I have, has been really, really good. Just
Mhm.
because it's just there's just not as much competition, right?
Yeah.
And it's just the least sexiest thing in real estate, you know. I mean, everybody talks about multifamily, and I think actually multifamily might make a comeback in 2025 finally.
Really?
So I am keeping an eye on that. Self storage still seems like it's rough right now, so I'm
Mhm.
not totally bullish on self storage, but I am starting to look more into multifamily or
Yeah.
even commercial for that matter.
Real quick, because I know we're coming up on the time, and I don't want to keep you over, but what is it that's making storage less desirable right now? Is it that people just don't have money to pay for it, or what's making that go down?
Well, it's all based on like cap rates versus cash flow and everything else.
Mhm.
People are still asking high prices for self storage,
I got you.
where in the multifamily area, we saw so many. I mean, at first people try to keep those high prices, but it didn't take long for them to get pretty humbled to
Mhm.
realize I just got to dump this thing because they get
Yeah.
distressed, right? And so when the values came down, it made it a little bit easier to buy now. Like it's easier to buy on sale. But self
Mhm.
storage, even though they've been beat up, they haven't
Yeah.
really done anything. They're kind of just holding on to it. They're not really
Mhm.
trying to release it due to stress and things like that. So I feel like the time's coming. It's just not yet.
Yeah. I think the market corrects a lot of things, and,
Mhm.
you multifamily or whatever the income producing asset is, I can't ask so much for it that the next guy can't make money on it. Like somehow,
Right.
either it's because of low interest or the price has got to be low. Something has to give there to make it desirable.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm seeing. Like the prices are still a little bit too high on self storage.
Right. All right, Chris, what is this is fascinating. I definitely want to have you on more to talk about infinite banking because I have so many questions about that. But what is the best way for people to connect with you and to follow you?
Yeah. Just remember money ripples. And that's not
Okay.
nipples, right? I'm not that kind of guy.
That's a different kind of site.
moneyripples.com.
Yeah.
Yeah, right there. Money at Money Ripples social media, or even our Money Ripples with Chris Miles YouTube
Mhm.
channel. They have the Money Ripples podcast on there that I'm now in my 11th year, 11th
Oh,
season
wow.
doing. So definitely check that out.
That is amazing. I will throw up your socials here. See if that changes that out. Cool.
There you go.
So I'll cross all the platforms at Money Ripples.
Yep, you got
Awesome.
it.
Awesome. Chris, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it. And I feel like 20 minutes isn't enough. So we're definitely going to have you come back on again.
Yeah, time flies when we're having fun. I
It
appreciate it,
does.
David.
All right. I'll talk to you soon.